Hello, good morning and welcome. How are you? Oh, honestly, general election results, unbelievable. I'm going to talk about the general election, but not from the viewpoint of any particular party, okay? My politics is probably quite surprising to most of you who tend to assume that dentists are sort of ultra blue conservatives. Talk about this is the problem. I've gone on about this problem in the past, which is the failure of the governance system, how it malfunctions, how it doesn't work, how it doesn't deliver anything, doesn't deliver what we want, doesn't deliver quality people. How did Theresa May get to be Prime Minister in the first place? It's like the old Yes Minister sketch, isn't it? Jay's sketch there. Jim Hacker gets to be Prime Minister because the two main contenders are at each other's throats, and everyone agrees that everybody doesn't want the other guy, and so Hacker gets elected because he's the third best, and that's what May was. She was the third best, and she suffered from another malaise that affects politicians, which is this widespread. They become a legend in their own bathroom. They believe that they are rulers of the universe and that they're in that position because they know what to do and that they're good at it, and which none of it's true. They're not. They just happen to be lucky enough to be in the right place at the right time, and to a certain extent dedicate, a lot of their lives to the pursuit of power. Whereas the rest of us are all getting on and, going on holiday and you don't call a general election because you've gone on a caravanning holiday, do you? Which is what the Labour, who was that woman, Labour minister, who kept going caravanning and people, you just ruled her out of the running, do you know what I mean? As anybody who was anybody. And now Theresa May has decided to have a general election because she went on a walking holiday. No, you don't. I know walking's supposed to help you think, and it's great if you're sort of a bit depressed and your neuro-linguistic whatever will tell you, why didn't you go for a nice long walk, and then you can get things straight in your own mind. There's people who can't think very well go for walking holidays to give their brain a chance to catch up with the real world. But if you're going to call a general election, you go to Churchill's war rooms and say, I've decided to call a general election. I decided while I was walking around Churchill's war rooms that it was the right thing to do, and everyone goes, F yeah, or I was walking around Dover Castle or something. No, you don't just say, I was out for a walk and people hate general elections as well. They do not like unnecessary general elections. It's just the public just does not like this. They're like, what? We only just voted on that. You're not really supposed to bother us more than once every 5 years. Thank you very much. We don't want to be having a general. Personally, I like the Swiss system where they have referendums on everything. So I am a great fan of a more participatory democracy. I think we should have far more votes on things, but far fewer general elections. And to call a general election to shore up your democratic mandate and then come out of it having lost your democratic mandate must surely go down as one of the biggest blunders in political history. And entirely self-inflicted, not at all. Although Corbyn did well, he's underrated in my opinion. I had a big argument on GDP UK forum about Corbyn about 2 years ago. People don't understand it. That's all right. It doesn't matter. People don't understand Bitcoin. People don't understand Trump. People don't understand Corbyn. The fact that I do has actually done me rather well over the years. And there's no point arguing with people. A lot of people need to be told how to think, and once they've been told how to think, then that's how they think. But Corbyn is a symptom of a desire for real politics, to get back into to elect politicians who don't have any artifice. They're not establishment figures. They're not well groomed and with a PR company, and they haven't been through the media training and come along with a bullet point, a spreadsheet full of stuff that they need to get across in their interview. They just really sort of more like the voters, just genuine people with genuine issues who believe strongly in. And Corbyn, no one can say that he's not, even when power beckoned, he didn't really renege on his original. I mean, he's chameleon enough to to play down his lack of support for Trident and his wish to nationalise the railways and stuff like that. But and also, I mean, in a master stroke during the Brexit vote, he was smart enough to realise that the Remainers were on the wrong side, and although the Labour Party's official policy was Remain, that they would have been wiped out if he had come out strongly for Remain. So he was like he did something very clever and made himself absent for the whole campaign. Nobody could find him to find out, and the Remainers complained a lot about the fact that he hadn't really instituted party policy and come out and campaigned strongly for Remain. And then what did the Tories do? They put a candidate in charge of Brexit who is a Remainer. I mean, what a huge mistake, what a massive mistake, and it led to a collective groan from everybody who voted Brexit. And now she then, and what did she do? So then, having sort of tried to convince the population that although she really didn't think we should leave, that she was the best person to be in charge of us leaving, she then made the mistake of thinking that because she was the Prime Minister and she'd called the election, that she needed to come up with a load of other policies. In other words, they needed some sort of broad manifesto, and they didn't. This was a single issue election. It was called to simply give Theresa May the largest possible majority to maximise the country's negotiating position in Brussels. And that has so badly backfired now. So badly backfired. She came out with a proposal which was a swinging proposal, bearing in mind that most of the people who vote in this country are over 50, right? So it's a bit like the old Demplan Deprash problem, isn't it? You can put most patients will be in band C. So if you put 5 pence on band C, it makes far more difference than putting £100 on band E, because nobody's in band E. So she decided to come out with a policy that directly affected the over 50s, and it was a colossal change in policy, a colossal change, and the public saw that. Put simply, the public were, having been who are being ripped off to the tune of, hundreds of pounds a day to have their elderly relatives put in nursing homes and residential care homes, because there's very little, effective competition and no desire to provide these sort of services. I think because of the fact that they're over-regulated, and therefore, most of the money that is spent on compliance, in the same way as it is with dental surgeries. So many services in this country could be so much cheaper if we just went back to a reasonable degree of inspection, testing and compliance, and not this stupid over-regulation that puts the fees up. So she comes up with this idea that instead of putting a maximum amount on the amount that you have to pay towards the care of your parents, or have to sacrifice out of your estate for your own care, that there's going to be in future a minimum amount that you can't go below. So in other words, they're going to raid your assets until you've got what most people, I think, would have regarded as practically nothing left in it, which is, in other words, if you've got, let's say it's not at all unreasonable for people these days to finish their life with assets of £1 million by the time you include the cost of their house and everything. And she's saying, yeah, well, we'll have 90% of that off you. We'll have 90% of that off you, leave you with 100. So there was this sea change from this is the most you can pay to this is the most that you're going to be left with. And then when it all hit the fan, and I know it hit the fan because Mrs. Angry said to me, I can't believe she said that, I don't agree with that, and when Mrs. Angry to get angry is really, quite unusual. And I knew that they'd done something. Well, Mrs. Angry is a very, very representative of Middle England. And as soon as they upset Mrs. Angry, they have really upset a lot of people. I mean, a lot of people. So they do this U-turn, and but by then they're damaged. It's not bad enough we've got a Remainer in charge of Brexit. We've got somebody whose first attempt to come up with anything that resembles a policy that she can put her name to is an absolute effing disaster, and has to be reversed within 2 days. And I tell you, 2 days for a major policy like that is quick. He's quick. I mean, that is when you release the policy and every single phone in the building starts ringing off the hook. That's a 2-day reversal. No, just, because otherwise they would have tried to bluff it out. And what they did was, instead of trying to bluff it out and say, no, actually, this is a good policy, they then changed their mind, did a U-turn, and tried to bluff out the U-turn and say, no, actually, that's not a U-turn, when everybody, of course, knew it was. So, I mean, what a disaster, and what a disaster for the country. I mean, I'm interested to know how it's going to go, because there's 2 ways it could go. You could either say that a hard Brexit is fatally flawed, and that we're going to be the laughingstock of Europe, and or it may sometimes you find that things you have to sort of destroy to create. You have to break things down to build them back up again. And if Theresa May goes and someone like Boris comes in, we may well find that we've got the best of all worlds, because the Tories, I think, are going to have to go more pro-Brexit, because I think that what they realise is that by prevaricating and being all wishy-washy about not really putting a Remainer in charge of Brexit and not really executing on the will of the people in the referendum, I think that they're going to say that they've taken a caning. Not to mention giving all the Remainers a chance to basically have another go at what I think they saw as effectively a rerun of the ballot, rerun of the referendum. So we had a referendum that was very tight, and so now we've ended up with a parliament that's very tight. Now Canterbury, which is just up the road from me, been Conservative more or less since 1841, has gone Labour. Only by a few votes, but there must have been a lot of organisation amongst the students there, because it's Canterbury, very big student town now, massive. The 2 universities there, University of Canterbury and Christchurch College, which is sort of quasi-university. Lots and lots of young people all voting Labour, all finally managed to work out how to vote. Obviously, someone's told them that, they don't vote on Facebook. That is not voting. That is, you actually have to register for a postal vote and stick it in the ballot, or you go down the voting office, this thing called a voting office, the ballot, whatever. Anyway, they finally, which is ridiculous, because Corbyn's got a tremendous support amongst the under 30s, and he's finally mobilised it. Perhaps they've finally grown up enough to learn how to vote, or perhaps they finally realised when they lost the referendum that it was their own stupid fault that they lost, because they didn't vote. Everybody like me who was over 50 did vote, and everybody who was under 30 thought that they were going to, their views were going to be taken into account by some sort of mental transference. Some sort of ESP was going to give them the result that they wanted. They finally realised that ESP does not exist, and they have to actually go and physically write on the piece of paper with a pencil what they want, so that people can know. But Corbyn, I think he's going to keep on keeping on. I've got a lot of sympathy with Corbyn. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying I want a Labour government. I don't necessarily want a Conservative government either. I mean, oh my God, never in my life have I felt more that both parties were completely useless. But Corbyn and the Labour government, I think, are slightly more useless. I love his views on disengaging from foreign wars. I think that all these terrorist attacks we've been having are directly attributable to our interfering and meddling and thinking that we've got an empire, or thinking that we have a role to play as the world's policeman, which is really not the future for this country or any country. Certainly not politically, not financially. And I've got, and he's very big on cycling, and they should have seen this coming, really, because if you look at Trump, he is a politician who was man of the people, right? Look at Nigel Farage, man of the people, not afraid to speak his mind, not afraid to be photographed in a pub with a pint, talking about things in the way that the voter talks about them. Just what do you think about immigration? What do you think about this? Not catering to their prejudices, but someone they can identify with, not someone like Clinton, who was a sort of a high priestess, Livia Soprano type figure, groomed by the establishment and the lizard people to sort of take over. They don't want that. People are not like that, and that is, love them or hate them, they have got the vote. They've got this ability to decide who's in charge. And if you looked at the referendum and if you looked at the Trump vote, you should have seen that Corbyn has got that appeal, to the common man. Now, I don't like my parents always said to me, they never voted. I think my mum was a Liberal Democrat, my dad was a Tory, he was a banker, and they hated the Labour because obviously they were voting in the 70s in the era of British Leyland and Red Robbo going on strike and chucking nuts and bolts up and down the British Leyland factory. So they had a very bad view of organised labour. I myself actually don't have such a bad view of organised labour. In the same way as possibly people who've studied Marxism understand Marxism is quite sensible. It's only when it's put into practice that it goes to pot. Organised, my history teacher was these days would have been regarded as a very bad history teacher, because she didn't teach us the history syllabus. She decided that, as a raving lefty, she decided to teach us all about the rise of organised labour, the Labour Party, and the Tolpuddle martyrs, and people being transported to Australia and everything. Oh, what a story. What a story. What a fantastic introduction to history. And I'm so grateful to her for doing that. And she brought up sort of 40 raving socialists, which was her intention, and who all failed their history O-level, because when the time came and we turned over the paper and the first question was, tell us about the Romans, we were all like, Romans? Who are the Romans? Where's the question about the Tolpuddle martyrs? Where's the question about Wat Tyler? And it turned out that she hadn't taught us anything that she was supposed to have done. We just spent all our time being Marxified. But anyway, Corbyn, I'm against big. My parents believe that my you won't believe what's in front of me. Someone's got a truck straight out of the like a monster truck. So they were sort of believed that Labour were tax and spend, and under Tony Blair I sort of didn't believe. I thought that may have changed a bit, but now I am firmly convinced that the way that the Labour Party gets into power is by just promising people stuff. They got the student vote by promising to make student education free. And everybody now, it's just the way to get into power is to see who is most likely to vote for you, find out what they want free, and promise it to them. It's shocking, and it's all funded just by printing money. They just literally print the money to do it, and which is theft, really, from the rest of us. because then inflation shoots up because there's more money chasing fewer goods, and so the price of everything goes up, and effectively you and I end up subsidising whatever projects have been funded by the money that's been printed out of thin air. But it's going to be interesting. I think we'll have to wait and see how it pans out. But in a way, I think it's actually panned out pretty well, because I'm only looking at it again from a political point of view. You don't want anyone to have an absolute stranglehold on power. You don't want anyone to have like a massive grip, because the minute they get a massive grip, they just don't listen to anybody. They're not going to listen to anybody. Now, we are going to go through a period at least where the political parties are going to be open to some sort of lobbying, or at least they'll pretend to be open to some sort of lobbying. And we may perhaps get a little bit further. I mean, the issues have really moved on. Nobody's going to be elected on the basis of dental policy at this rate. But well, anyway, interesting times, and actually salutary lesson on how to lose an election without really trying. So well done, Theresa May. My patients here, apparently they're outside waving at me. So I'm only 4 minutes late. I mean, keep your knickers on. I'll talk to you tomorrow. All right, bye.